Welcome back to the second episode for the steampunk jewelry tutorial called Blue Jean Dream. In this tutorial, we're going to take a couple of everyday items that you can either find at the hardware store or even at Walmart actually, and we're going to finish the pendant aspect of the necklace. We're going to take a galvanized washer, as you can see there, and this one is actually just a plain washer. It's 2 inches if you want to look for that specific size, but you can use any. We're going to take some magazine or newspaper scraps and some Mod Podge, which is just a craft glue, and we're going to also use some alcohol inks. You can use any type of ink that you want. I choose alcohol inks because they tend to be brighter and they look better, in my opinion. They also are archival safe, which if you want to use some of the scrapbook papers, or you want whatever the image is or that you're going to put the ink on to really last, it's better to use alcohol ink. They will also stain metal and other plastics as well, whereas your run-of-the-mill water-based ink will not. So that's something to keep in mind. And basically what we're going to do is we are going to just go ahead and take some of our paper scraps. We're going to lay down a layer of the Mod Podge first, and then we're just going to sort of wrap around the paper that we have here around the washer itself, just to hide the metal. If you want to leave some of the metal poking through, that's completely fine. It's really up to you. It's your choice on what you want to do with the pendant, but I'm going to wrap the entire thing with paper to give it sort of a steampunk or aged look. So you just want to put a little bit down, and then you take a piece of the print, and you can have words that are larger if you want to highlight a particular word to give it emphasis, whether it's love or steam or punk, anything. I mean, whatever you choose, you can use different types of font. I'm not particularly doing that. In this case, I'm just going to wrap around different print. And so you just do a little bit at a time. You can use images too. It doesn't have to be words. And the more random, the better. It also looks really good if you tear the strips instead of cutting them with scissors, because it will give it a more vintage look if you actually tear the strips of paper. So you just want to work it around the washer. Make sure that you're covering both sides of the paper with the Mod Podge. It'll dry matte, unless of course you have the glossy finish, which I suggest the matte because later we're going to actually put a layer of the triple thick on there that will give it a glossy or glazed look. So I would start with the matte. And you just kind of work the paper in with your hands, just kind of smush those edges in the inside of the washer, and just work it around till you get it about where you want it. So you just continue to place the different pieces of newsprint, or you can really use anything. You can use scrapbook paper, you can use newsprint, you can use photos, images. It doesn't need to be, like I said, it does not need to be text. It really can be anything you want. The Mod Podge, excuse me, I always call it Mod Podge. It can basically, it will glue anything onto this washer. You're going to usually want to let it dry about a day. You can ink it before, but you want to let the glue completely set before you put any of the triple thick or any of the other glazes over it. So you can go ahead and just work it around. It's pretty much like Elmer's glue, but I prefer it because it does a better job of actually adhering things and keeping a nice flat. It doesn't give you that kind of sheen, which I don't always like in certain projects. Sometimes, just using Elmer's is fine, but with this, I mean, it is used specifically for decoupage, which is what we're doing. So it really is a better product, and you can get it at Michael's or Hobby Lobby for under $5. I mean, it's really cheap, and it lasts forever. So now you can use the end of a paintbrush or anything that you have that's kind of round to just push those seams in, and just kind of go over the edge with the Mod Podge, just to make sure that you're covering all the washer that you want to cover, and just to make sure that the paper is really kind of squished down there. And you don't want it to be too bubbly, and you don't want it to be sort of too rippled. We're going to also add a couple of Swarovski elements on this too to really brighten it up a bit. But the next thing we're going to do is, after we've waited, I don't know, about 30 minutes, let the Mod Podge set a little bit, we'll go ahead and take some ink. And the way I do it is I take like an old rag and I put some of the ink onto the rag, and then I just dab it on the piece, which is a little hard to see here, but I'll show you toward the end how it looks. And you go through and you just dab a little bit, and if you don't like it, you dab some more off with a clean side of the rag and just keep moving around. And I'm using kind of an orange or yellow colored ink here because it gives it that look of being aged. Something you can also do as well, if you want, is you can take your strips of newsprint or paper, or even a photo if you choose, and you can actually soak them in tea for about 20 minutes. What you do is you just brew a bag of tea, put it in hot water, place it in a pan, something very shallow, and you let the tea steep for a little while. You put the piece of paper in there and let it set, I don't know, 15-20 minutes. Just keep an eye on it because you don't want the paper to get too mushy. And then you pull it out and you dry it, and once it's fully dry, then you can use it and, you know, tear it into strips and then use it for a pendant like this. Now I'm also taking a little stronger strength of the ink. This time, again, I'm using a little bit of the gold, but I want it darker in some places. And I use old makeup sponges that like come with the eyeshadow kits. You can also buy them at craft stores. I think they're under about $5 as well. I usually just take them out of my cosmetics and use them. So, I mean, that's something that you'll probably have just around the house. And they work great for if you want a concentrated amount of color. You don't want it to be really kind of washed out. Maybe you want one spot where it looks like the ink is really heavy. I'm also dabbing a little bit of silver metallic ink on here just to give it a little different texture and feel, and a little bit of shimmer, but I'm also blotting a lot of that off. There's nothing wrong with putting things on and then taking it off. You'll still get the look that you want, but there's, you know, a lot of artisans do that. They will put some on really thick and then they'll just dab it off because they just want a little bit. And here's the, this is the ink, this is the Mixatives by Erin Dondak, and this is the blue that I use also. And they come in a pack of 3 for about $10. And that's at Michael's. If you go to Hobby Lobby, they're usually about the same price, but you can always go online and use your 40% off coupon and grab them for a little bit cheaper. And I'm just putting a little blue on here because I want it to kind of match with some of the blue jean elements of the necklace. But again, I'm adding it and I'm just wiping a lot of it off using this old rag just to kind of, and it's just a terry cloth towel you can get at Walmart, a pack of 50 for about $3. So I use them all the time, and I'm just blotting it out. And you know, if you finish up and you're like, I hate this, I hate the way the ink looks, I'm not happy with it, then you can always go back, let it dry, and go back over it. You know, put more yellow over it, soak it in some tea, whatever you want to do. I mean, you can always rework it. And worst case scenario, you strip the paper off and you start again. That's the wonderful thing about using a galvanized washer, is that it's really easy just to pull this stuff off. I mean, you just run some scissors up the line or use an X-Acto knife and cut it, tear it off, start again. And because you can get the newsprint either from your newspaper or magazines, it's not going to cost you a lot of money to redo it. So now that we've got some more of the little shiny elements, I'm going to actually take and dab a little bit of India ink toward the end, which is just solid black ink. You don't have to use India ink. I just happen to have it, and I'm all about using kind of what's around the house and what's available to me. And the reason I'm doing this and blotting it out is because I want to add some more contrast and some darkness to the piece. And I just kind of use the brush, add a little bit of more Mod Podge. And now I'm going to dump actually some glitter on the top after I finish. And it will dry clear, matte. And again, a lot of times I take things, put things on and take them off. And then I didn't want quite that much glitter, so I'm just blotting off some of it. And as you can see, it takes more of the glitter off, but we still have a little bit left. And all I did there was I just dab some more Mod Podge on, and now I'm just pulling off some of the more of the glitter pieces. That way It's not just overly glittery. We don't want it completely full of glitter, but just take some more of the pieces off. Just make sure I don't mess up any of the edges there. And that's what it looks like so far. As you can see, the glue isn't quite dried, so you're going to have a little bit of the glue there. Just want to make sure your pieces of paper are not coming off the ends. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some gem tack, which is my favorite adhesive for gluing on small gems and crystal elements, and we're going to use the Swarovski crystal elements, which you can get in flatbacks or any type. I'm using the flatback gems, and I'm going to take a little bit of the gem tack and just set it down, and I kind of let it tack up just a little for about a minute or so. It works a lot easier if you do. And then once that sets a little bit, you just take your toothpick, grab the end of the gem with the toothpick, and then you just kind of roll it onto your piece. Sometimes it takes a minute. Don't worry if you get a little bit of glue on the gem. It does dry clear, but it's water based, so you can easily just kind of rub everything off whenever it dries up. I'm going to put another gem here. And again, these are just flat back gems that you can get at Michael's. They usually come on a card that'll have several different colors in one, and sometimes different sizes, and they run about $10, but you can use if you use them sparingly, you can do several pieces of jewelry with them. Now I'm going to put this last one on, and we'll let that dry.